Hello, Sean Woolley here from Cloud9 Spain. With me today, I'm absolutely thrilled to have Eric Finnas Dahlstrom. I had to look at my notes because it's quite a long name. Eric, thanks for joining us. Now, Eric is the CEO of James Edition, which is the world's largest luxury marketplace, according to you guys. You get a lot of people coming through your doors, although it's an online door. But tell us a little bit about what you guys do and what James Edition is.
We are the world's largest luxury marketplace online, primarily focused on real estate and or luxury real estate globally. So what we really do is connecting high net worth buyers to properties more or less all around the world, more than 100 countries, and buyer nationalities from more than 100 countries as well. So it's really kind of creating these cross-border connections that I think is very typical for luxury. If we look at mass market transactions, they are naturally more local. People move for different reasons, while high net worth individuals, and especially now post-COVID, looking to move for many other reasons, like lifestyle or so preference or where to live for different reasons. Yeah.
So predominantly your listings, your inventory is, I think, 500,000 euros plus equivalent, isn't it?
Exactly.
And I'm guessing the average sort of transactional value or listing value would be 2-3 million euros or maybe more.
Yeah. So like, more or less the supply globally looks a little bit like a pyramid. So of course the amount of supply would be more in the base and then narrow towards the top. But if we look at the demand side, so where we generate inquiries from buyers, then it's about 2.5 million globally done. And then it goes up in some regions which are more pricey and then lower in some other regions. Yeah.
Now it's a fascinating end of the market, not just here in Marbella but worldwide as well, because obviously the world has changed a lot since COVID. And the main reason I wanted to speak to you today was just to find out what's been happening in that segment of the market. I mean, we have evidence of what's been going on here on the ground in terms of our own clients and our own sales activity, but it's great to speak to you because you can see it more globally, and also you'll have far more of an objective view of what's been happening. So, yeah, since COVID, what have you noticed? Are there any key things that have been happening? Is there a flight of money somewhere? Are there more certain nationalities buying than others? What are people doing with their money?
Yeah, great question. So in general, if we look like during the COVID period and post-COVID, of course, luxury assets in general was a big hype around that, and assets in general appreciated a lot in value. And we could see things like cars and watches, things we also present on the site, but they're smaller in terms of volume. All went up in demand and then in price, of course. And I think now looking a little bit, maybe if we call this post-COVID now, finally, that luxury real estate is perhaps the most interesting segment to be in right now. And I think that we still see the effects of COVID. And I think that was kind of a stepwise change in behavior. It wasn't really just incremental growth, but really like people took a fresh look at their life and then the opportunities that remote work created and so people can really choose for completely different reasons where to live. And how we look at it then a little bit, if we look at the world, we have a set of hotspots, of course. So most people around the world, if we're talking about high net worth individuals, many people want to live in the same places, right? So it's not just moving next door, but it's moving like anywhere in the world, and those places are usually the same, like Ibiza or Tuscany or French Riviera or here in Marbella or Miami, for example, has grown a lot in the US. So these places, of course, when we have that massive increase in demand in a very, very short time span, prices, of course, go up. So I think what we're seeing now is that a lot of these places, and we somehow also look at these hotspots as brands in one way, right? So kind of all these places have an opportunity to brand themselves as a destination then for these high net worth individuals is now figuring out where should I live. And there's some things that maybe you cannot change, like the weather is hard to change, where your hotspot is located. Here we have sea, somewhere we have mountains. Here we have a lot of sun during the whole year. But then there's things you can work with, right? Like so different incentives for people to move, like taxes. You can also work on infrastructure and all these things. And I think what we're seeing now, and also we can see it in the resulting numbers, is one of the very progressive places here currently is, of course, Dubai. Which is where currently it's a top destination globally for high net worth individuals to relocate, and also the top city in the world, Dubai, then in terms of transactions, about $10 million. So outpacing now traditional kind of hotspots or wealthy destinations like London or Paris or New York and so. So I think Dubai has both because of their location, then they have great weather, closeness to the sea, etc., but also through intentional work from the government side, created a lot of incentives for people to move there also. So and now we see that the result in numbers. So if we look at this, and we have seen places like Portugal maybe decreasing these incentives because they saw the numbers go up too much in some places. So looking globally, we see that we still have that wave of people relocating, and we still have, I think, a lot of places figuring out how to handle this, right? So kind of working with these incentives, how to even handle inflows in terms of infrastructure, then schools, roads, all these things. Like how should people be able to live here with families or travel or work even in these locations? So I think luxury real estate right now is just such an interesting place to be globally. Yeah.
It really is. I mean, we learned an awful lot during COVID, actually, because we still had the demand from people, because people were bored. They had nothing to do. They were sitting at home thinking, oh, let me get out. And it gave us an opportunity to speak to a lot of high net worth people about how they wanted to be dealt with, the type of service they wanted. And we were involved in sorting so many weird and wonderful things out for these types of people, because they tended to be, well, when they were working, they tended to be time poor, asset rich, but they just didn't want to do the nitty gritty. They wanted, somebody to manage the property for them. We had requests from people who wanted a reconditioned Steinway piano sourcing. They wanted a fleet of BMWs. They wanted helicopter access from the airport. We'd never worked with that before, because we probably hadn't engaged to that extent with that audience, and it was fascinating. And I actually sat down with one guy for lunch who was a banker in London, and he said, Sean, I'm a busy guy, and I just want my wife and my kids, when I'm not around to enjoy the holidays with them, I just want them to know that everything's taken care of, and I haven't got the time to do it. So our offering changed during COVID, and then, like you say, since COVID, people have reevaluated their lives, haven't they? They've recognised that, oh, I don't have to actually be sitting at home in Manchester or Stockholm. I can be in Dubai or Marbella, and it's made a lot of people think. So I think we've had that maybe 2.5 years burst of activity at the top end. I mean, you'll know, because you're here, that there was a huge amount of transactions done at that, real top high end. And I don't know, do you sense that slackening off now? Have we fulfilled that post-COVID glut of interest, or do you see it continuing?
Yeah. So if we look at, globally, I think, so right now we have still now, if you look just August that we closed, in terms of buyer demand, we have the highest level of 10 million plus inquiries ever. So then I think we are maybe not always completely representative of the market, because the market is also changing, but still we see very high demand. And if we look at Marbella and the neighboring cities specifically, then we see, just as you said, we had a very big spike in 2022. Transaction and demand came down a little bit during, especially second half of 2023. Yeah.
It was a year or two halves that, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So you can really look at the chart doing kind of a slanting slope downwards. But now we see the opposite this year, right? So kind of now when I looked at July, August, just before coming here, and specifically these very, very high-end transactions now are coming back very rapidly in Marbella.
Why is that, do you think? What's driving that? Is it the fact that people can see interest rates moving down, or does that really affect this market, or not?
Yeah, great question. So I think, like, if we look at the million euro plus transactions, let's say, at least, and then a large share of that, or the dominant share of that, is usually cash transactions. Then it's maybe, is it fully cash transactions, or is it financed in a different way through kind of using companies or businesses securities? But at least it's not necessarily the regular kind of approach of going to a retail bank here in Marbella, getting a mortgage. So interest rates directly probably affects less. Mm-hmm. Indirectly, of course, to some extent affects. But as we also can see, the usually change is maybe the worst period. Like, so when you have interest rate going up rapidly, that's a period of like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. Let's not do any kind of, let's not buy a 10 million euro house now. But interest rate being high and being stable high, or even now when we're thinking, okay, it's probably going down, I think that creates more confidence in actually acting. So I think, and also what we see in the stock markets, right? So which is usually, we have a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs buying. So asset values in terms of businesses are very high right now. and when you can leverage those to buy real estate, that also creates opportunities.
And do you think most of these clients are buying real estate to live in permanently, or is it just an investment, maybe to rent out or as a holiday home, or is it a mixture?
Yeah, so for us, it's hard to say completely, of course, especially on a global scale, exactly incentives. We have some indicators here and there. We see in general that kind of still primary home and second home as globally as a reason to purchase is almost more or less equal.
Okay.
So it's perhaps 30-40% each, and then the remaining slightly lower than is buying as a pure investment property.
Okay. One question I get asked a lot when they come to Marbella, clients say, "Wow, this place, it's just going from, it's lots of things happening, lots of money. Where is the money coming from?" They always say, who's buying these things? Who's buying these things?
Yeah, great question. So we see, of course, and I think that's more specific for James Edition, but our largest foreign buyer group into Marbella or Costa del Sol is from the US.
Yeah.
So I think there I think for different reasons, of course, many people buy here for coming from the US because they think it's great value for money. So if you look at the square meter prices here versus the US, of course, it's a completely different world. And I think also now, maybe especially, or at least now when we're looking at the supply that's on the market, it's fairly high quality, right? There's a lot of new builds and people want not new build, not off plan, but ready to move in, let's say new build often. Like that's really what they're looking for. So we see always the most popular year to buy from is the previous year. So it's like, it's always, you want brand new, more or less. And I think coming from the US then, especially if you sell what you have there coming over, then of course you unlock a lot of money. But otherwise it's usual suspects like from Northern Europe. We also have a lot of demand. We cannot see specifically the nationality, of course, but we have a lot of demand from Spain.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people maybe either relocating within Spain or relocating here.
What about the UK? Is there any pattern emerging from UK buyers? Are they still out there looking?
Yeah, they're still out there. So for us, yes, I said Americans are the highest, but then it's in Spanish then or Spain buyers located here, but then UK would be the number 3. Yeah, and then going down, it's now this year I look specifically, we have people from in relative terms that's growing quite quickly from Netherlands, Switzerland, and of course Scandinavia. I think Scandinavia is a little bit lower now because the Swedish krona is fairly weak.
I was going to say that there has been a drop-off in the Scandies.
Yeah.
Where are they? What's happening?
Yeah, I think many are staying put, and I think Sweden, maybe in a global context also, is a little bit different in terms of remote work policies. Many people are still going to the office, and I think many people want to go to the office, but also usually companies implement policies to actually come to the office, which maybe don't create the same opportunities. I think, of course, we still have a lot of people coming here vacationing or staying in holiday homes and have second homes here. But I think both the Swedish economy plus the Swedish krona has made it more challenging to buy, especially as prices continue to go up.
Yeah, it's a bit of a perfect storm against them at the moment, isn't it? Interestingly, what we've noticed is that it doesn't take much to cause a problem or a downturn or an uptick in demand. Geopolitically, obviously, there's a lot going on in the world at the moment. A lot of the American clients that we've dealt with have cited the politics and also the security, so they don't want to send their kids to school with an armed guard at the gate. That seems to be a sort of recurring theme for Americans. They want a safe European base. And for the Brits, since the general election and the new Labour government, which seems to be that they're going to be taxing the wealthy a little bit more than they've been used to. So we're expecting a bit of a flight of money. We're already seeing it. A lot of high net worth families from the UK are kind of thinking, oh, I don't know if I want to be here, so maybe I need to reposition myself globally somewhere that's a little bit more tax friendly. But even if it's not, at least where the sun's shining. And we're definitely noticing that already. I think people were waiting to give the new UK government a little bit of time to see which way it was heading. But I think we're finding out that, I think the wealthy and the super wealthy are going to be hit quite hard. But that affects our businesses, doesn't it? When anything like that happens, a change of government or something that's just a little bit sensitive politically, they're looking for a change of scenery.
Yes,
it's very interesting.
I think it really comes down also to what we discussed in the beginning. Like, every location has a brand in some sense. Like even if you say Marbella in Sweden, people have like images in their head coming up. Maybe, unfortunately, due to the press and so, maybe not always positive. But I think people that actually been here are extremely positive about coming down here. And it's to say these are things like that are fixed. Like the weather is good, the beach is here, and so and so. But then you have this kind of political climate, either intentionally changing or unintentionally with different geopolitical changes. So that also triggers, let's say, movements in one or other direction.
Have you noticed any greater demand from Eastern Europe because of the conflict in Ukraine?
Or
maybe it's not because of the conflict, but we've noticed more traffic from places like Poland, Lithuania, but I don't know if that translates into the higher end.
Yeah, no, Poland for sure is a great example. I think the traditional markets, like maybe a decade ago, like if we look at Russia, it's probably come down quite a bit, and then Ukraine maybe going up. But for us, it's still fairly small in terms of the total share of buyers. Yeah. So, and then I think there's other complexities when it comes to like moving to Spain that maybe like Russians, for example, have moved a lot to Dubai now recently.
It's very interesting because we've been in business for 23 years, and when we started, it was very Brit focused, and maybe the Germans in second place, and then there was hardly anybody else in the market. Now it's completely different, isn't it? I mean, I think even this year we've sold to about 20 different nationalities.
Yeah,
it's incredible. And is that because Marbella is positioning itself as a global brand now, rather than just a place you go on holiday from Northern Europe?
Yeah.
How's that changed in your mind?
Yeah, I think, like using again the example of Dubai, I think Dubai is extremely progressive when it comes to thinking very long term, what I want to do. So they're making a lot of changes now also how to transact. So I think they have a lot of similarities to Marbella in terms of how the real estate market functions. You have a lot of agents, and more or less anybody can access the supply and advertise the supply. So you can bring a buyer to a selling agent, and kind of you split the commissions and all these things. That's more regulated in some other markets, but that's changing very quickly in Dubai. So we can see that, like, when you have a kind of push from the government in actually making changes, it can happen very fast. And you can do digital online transactions and so. So I would say Marbella I still can position itself even better as a global brand. Actually, I think that as I said before, like when you mention Marbella to a Swede, I think there's many pictures coming up, not all of them positive, but most people that have been here have very, very positive images. So I think, like, how do you translate that into image building? I think that's still a big opportunity for Marbella, actually.
It's interesting because I was asking some American clients, a few different ones, why Marbella? And they said 10 years ago, nobody was talking about Marbella. No one had heard of it. Now it's kind of the in topic to discuss around dinner party tables. Have you heard about Marbella? Are you going over? Are you going to check it out? It's interesting, isn't it? And I think a lot of the interest is sparked by the brand that they've created, which is the California of Europe. And I think obviously if you're American and you think California, Europe, that's a nice mix. And that's what we're finding. People are drawn to that. And when they come here, all of our American clients, they always say, this is just like Southern California. They see the similarities for themselves, but it feels good. It's obviously very Hispanic, which a lot of California is. So it feels like a home from home for them. And I think Marbella has done a great job at positioning itself globally. I think there's far more they could do, but I think the strides that they've made in the last 10 years has been terrific. How do you see, just to focus on Marbella for a second, do you see that popularity and the success changing or waning, or do you think there's more to come?
Yeah. So and also continuing on your point there, I completely agree also that if we look longer term, I think Marbella, as you say, has positioned itself much more as a global brand today than it was, as you say, a decade ago. And then I think, like, short term there's still opportunities, but and as you say, now we were also smaller in the beginning of COVID, let's say, but then I also looked like we had about 50 or so nationalities making buyer inquiries here in 2021. Now it's over 100. So I think we have a massive, like a doubling in terms of fragmentation of the buyer base. And as you say, the share of British buyers coming down to the benefit of many other nationalities all over the world. So for sure, Marbella, we have proved that have really established itself as a global brand. That I think it's maybe not up there with kind of Ibiza or Tuscany or French Riviera yet, I think. But looking to the future, And the transactions, as we talked, I think we had a big spike in 2022, coming down a little bit 23. We see now, I mean, both these transactions coming back a little bit 24, but also we see demand now, inquiries, which probably a leading indicator for transactions coming back more or less towards the long-term trend lines that started there in 2012, 2013, because there is kind of a fairly concrete trend line after that drop, let's say, after 2007, 2008.
One question I was going to ask you. So where, when people make inquiries on your website, what is the number one destination? Is it Dubai? And then...
So in terms of... so right now, it's still the big... places, let's say, where we have a lot of supply and buyers like New York, London, Paris, and so. But Marbella and Dubai are up there in terms of hotspots, let's say. They are like, in terms of the global hotspots, I would say they're number 1 and 2, like in terms of getting the lifestyle component of it, let's say.
It's very interesting because we get, like I said, we get inquiries from all over the world, like you do, which is so different to how it was. And it's great for us because obviously the problem in the past was that, if the UK was the dominant buying nation, and there was a recession in the UK or a problem in the UK, then obviously that market falls. It goes, and then we're left with hardly anything. Now it's different, and I explain this to clients, and particularly the British. They always say, but if we stop buying, then the Costa del Sol will fall apart. And it's not actually the case. You're about 8%, I think, 8% of the market. So the great thing for us in terms of protecting the brand and protecting the market is that we have buyers from literally all over the world. So if any one country is affected by maybe a conflict or a recession, you'd hope that there'd be other countries coming to replace them. And that, I think, is the difference now with Marbella, which makes it a far more resilient property market. In the past, we were probably over-reliant on one or two nations.
Yeah.
And it's certainly here in the Costa del Sol, it's not a normal market. It's a bubble. It's not a primary home market generally. It's a second home market. And of course, when times are good, everybody wants a second home. When times are bad, it's the first thing you get rid of. Get rid of that home in Marbella. I don't need it. So I don't know if we've been tested yet on that, because we haven't had, we've had COVID, but I think actually during COVID, we expected there to be a fire sale of properties, but I think people just couldn't move. They just couldn't do anything. They couldn't sell, they couldn't buy. They just like...
It'd be good that there wasn't like online transactions then. Because
can you imagine? Oh my God.
Sell.
Yeah. So I think everyone just kind of got through it somehow and they cobbled together the money to do it, but they weren't spending money. And I think we expected there to be this glut of sales after COVID. And of course, people then got their lives back, came on holiday to their lovely holiday home in Marbella or Dubai or wherever and thought, this is rather nice. I could do this a bit more. And it actually stimulated more demand, which had the opposite effect of what we thought. But it's amazing how sometimes, you expect world events and certain things to have one effect and actually they have a completely different effect because they change what's in here. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And I think, what we see is as we discussed before, also like people moving for completely different reasons and really moving to come down. I think there it's what is important there, and I think both for agents, of course, but Marbella as a whole to kind of advertise the opportunities to move as a family. I think that's kind of one very key component, that is for the people I speak a lot with from Sweden or so, like when they want to take the step to move down, it's like what will happen with my kids, right? Like, so where will they go? Where should we live to be able to access that school, or like what will happen in school systems, and even like further, will you be able to access any international schools after that even? So what are the school systems and all this? I think the reasons people are moving, and especially if you move as a family, are probably more sticky even in a downturn or a recession. And then I think we see also compared to, of course, like 15 or so years ago now, when 2007, 2008, like the amount of supply coming onto the market is a lot less now. And even after that fall, the prices didn't drop as much in Marbella as maybe neighboring cities or towns or so, like if you look at Benavis, Estepona and so. So I think, of course, real estate, location. I think what will happen with real estate prices in specific places here and there around Marbella, hard to say, but I also think exactly as you say, like they won't make more seafront in Marbella. Yeah. So like I think parts of Marbella that are now very high demand will also stand very strong in kind of would there be a recession coming?
It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, we sell properties, or we see properties being sold at like 4 or 5 million euros, and we're like, crikey, that's a lot of money for what you're buying. But actually then, 2 years later, 7-8 million. And you're like, wow, where does this end, kind of thing? And like you say, they're not building any more beach.
Yeah.
So if you can get a good location and something fairly unique at a a decent price, even though it may seem a high price, you know, it can do you very nicely.
Yeah.
In terms of Marbella, and by Marbella, we were talking about really probably the golden triangle of Marbella, Benavis, Estepona, where, you know, Benavis now is becoming more and more popular because there's more land and more opportunities, perhaps. What could those municipalities do you think, to enhance their standing on the global stage? Is there anything that we're missing here? Is there anything that could be getting done that, you know, that you think we're missing?
So I think if we look at some countries, and I think Spain is doing a good job there in terms of transparency. So I think like when buyers, I think Marbella, as you say, is a brand, and the opportunity to discover Marbella online now, properties, all the things like Marbella, if you talk about content listings and so that you can explore it online, especially if you are abroad, of course, you would, that's the first place you would look. It's very, very good. It presents Marbella in a great way. If we see other countries maybe where the quality of listings and video and virtual tours is a lot less, I think Marbella probably the last, like also just before and around COVID to now, have improved massively. So I think the content is top notch. It's easy to discover. But then I think like when you come to that purchase moment, as you say, like, okay, now 4.5 million, 5 million for a property is a lot of money. And when you're standing in that moment, is this a good purchase? Like the market is still very non-transparent. So I think in Sweden, you could almost ask anybody living in the center of Stockholm, what is the square meter price right now of your property, and they will tell you, down to the 100 kronor almost.
Yeah.
And here it's very difficult. And I think looking at countries as France, they're now moving all that data online, making it public. It's a lot less to discover. You can look at a specific property 5 years back, transaction history. Yeah. Same Dubai, you can look at the whole, you can almost real time see transactions happening. And I think that has to come from, you asked what the towns do, that's more difficult for them, but I think that has to come from kind of a government side to create that transparency, because I think that decreases a little bit of trust when you're making these big purchases, right? That you want to understand, is this a good buy?
So more data, more comparables that people can use as a benchmark.
Especially that decision moment. And I think in the front end, like I think in terms of properties, there are great properties on the market. Agents do a great job in kind of creating great content for them. The towns could maybe do a little bit more job in kind of helping to promote the locations. I think let's say Marbella is a very strong brand. Benavis is probably will have a hard time catching up to build that brand, but they kind of piggybacking a little bit of that brand, of course, as towns around. But maybe doing more both in terms of initiatives and talking about those initiatives, what they do, because the population will probably grow long term to cater to that growth, and what they're doing in terms of schools and infrastructure, and so to understand, like, okay, what am I moving into? Because it's a big commitment it's a smaller commitment to buy something because you see the sea, and you can, if you buy a second home, I know I can go down to the beach and swim. There probably be 30-35 degrees during summer. That will still continue. But if I move here with my family, this is a place I can live long term.
Yeah.
And I think you need the confidence then that you're investing in a region that is growing. And I think, coming back to that question, like, where do we see the future? I think it will continue to grow. The demand will continue to grow. So what will the region do in terms of kind of making sure that
Interesting what you said about the data, because I think that some agents, I'm not going to mention any names, but I think some agents, when they're pricing properties, they just go, 5, should we call it 10? I don't know, let's put it on at 12 and see what happens. It's almost like there's no logic to it. It's just, that's what we think it's worth. And it's, you know, where's the data? Where's the history? And, you know, that property might have been 2 million 5 years ago, and now they're pricing it at 12 just because they think they can get it. And it's, but it's not based on any hard data. It's just a gut feeling, and that can't be the way to run the market, can it? It's.
I think there's some specifics, of course, like because it's more of a second home market. And I think I just heard the other day that they did some measurements. I think this was specifically in Malaga city, though, but the electricity consumption during winter goes down massively. Like there's many properties, of course, that are not lived in here, which means compared to more of a primary home market, that theoretically almost everything is for sale, right? It's just a matter of price. So I think many people, maybe it's not even the agent pricing it incorrectly. It's more the seller want to be opportunistic, right? So like, I mean, I know I have friends who kind of the first thing they do before they move in, so they just furnish the apartment or the house, they send in a photographer, take pictures, then we put it online, and then maybe if it's we live in it, and then we put it online, because it's not a lot of cost to just advertising it. So, and then if someone comes and pay what they want.
True, everything's for sale. 2 questions I want to ask you before we leave. I could talk to you all day about this. Video, the impact of video on transactions.
Yeah.
Because certainly during COVID and even since COVID, we've been selling high-end real estate purely from video. And are you finding it, is that a general thing worldwide, or is it just a local market sort of trend, would you say?
Yeah. So, no, for sure, it's a global trend. And I think many, especially if we talk about larger brokerages that we work with, they really promote this among their agents to really work with great content, and video is one part of it. Of course, imagery and descriptions and all these things, and making sure that the data is always accurate is fundamental. But then video and also virtual tours we see really have an impact on conversion rate into lead. Then it's hard to know if it's kind of transacting more, but you really have if you are in a market where not so many have video, then you of course have a competitive advantage doing video, because it's very hard to assess a property on just a few images. And I think even the number of images, this we also see, there's a lot of data we can use here, of course, that like if your property has less than 15, 20 images, it's lowers conversion rate than up. Then it has it kind of tapers off at the top somewhere, 60 or somewhere images, then you lose that effect. But having 10 images on a property for 4.5 million, then we're not even talking about adding a video. So then we just need like more images. We need an image of at least the bathrooms, the bedrooms, the views, the outdoor spaces, etc. So I think like the fundamentals should still be in place, but then adding video is for sure.
It's interesting because what we noticed since COVID, and it's carried on, is that video has kind of taken the place of first viewings for a lot of people. They've realized that rather than coming here and having a week traipsing around 20 different properties, actually they can work with us beforehand to narrow down the selection, get us to go and shoot 5 videos, and they can sit at home, watch them with the family and go, okay, I'm going to come out next week and I'm going to look at 3 villas.
Yeah. Not
the 20 that we're going to, so they actually save a lot of time and money. And that's become a big part of our business now. Last question for you before I let you go. I know you're a very busy man. James Edition, what's next? Anything in the pipeline? Are you just looking for further growth and global domination, or have you got anything up your sleeve you need to tell us about?
In general, we continue to try to do the best job we can to help the real estate agents, of course, advertise and in the end sell their properties and then bring more buyers. And we do that both in the markets where we are fairly strong today and also in new markets. So I would say we continue to try to expand, and we will during the coming, let's say, half a year next year, so launch a lot of new products that hopefully help the agents do that. And of course, we're continuing a lot of the focus that we have on real estate.
Yeah.
So because as I mentioned, there's a lot of factors why this space is just extremely interesting, and also in very, very high demand now from buyers globally.
Brilliant. One thing we get asked a lot by vendors is, where are you going to put my property? Is it going to go on your website, and then is it going to go on Rightmove? Is it going to go on? And we have to be careful sometimes, because obviously when we're dealing in the high-end market, a lot of clients, a lot of vendors, they don't want, I know it sounds really snobby, but they don't want their €5 million villa mixed in amongst the 200,000 euro apartments. And it kind of makes you think as an agent, actually, you're right. So I'm guessing that with James Edition, agents use your brand as almost like a seal of approval for when they list properties with vendors. Are you finding that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think also we of course, in terms of as a platform, as a marketplace, we also differentiate a bit, both in terms of brand, of course, and as you say, we have a price floor plus some additional criteria for the listings that we publish, which creates a slightly different experience for the buyer, of course. But then we also really work on different features, as you say, videos, virtual tour, imagery is very, very high quality. So these things help, of course, put the property in the best quality way, and so I think that's one component. But I think also James Edition, as a global marketplace, that's also a big differentiator, that luxury by definition is more global. So the higher up we go in the price segments in any market, the more of the demand that you will be able to get comes from international buyers. So it's not only about putting the property, and I think any seller or agents or so, of course, should then use today multiple marketing channels, because buyers are also multi-channel. But I think one channel is very important to capture in the specific luxury space is, of course, to put it in the right context, but also to get that global reach.
Definitely. Very interesting. if you're a buyer, a seller, an agent, and you haven't seen the James Edition website, check it out. It's a beautiful website, and you know what? It's easy to use, which is so important these days when we haven't got a lot of time on our hands. We're going to leave some details as well, so if you do want to sign up or list your property, or sign up as an agent, or just have a browse and have a look around, you'll be able to do so from this link. And in the meantime, thank you so much for coming along. I'll let you leave and enjoy the rest of your day. But thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.